Joining us now is a Michigan man who obviously got to experience Michigan man Jim Harbaugh's rise as the Michigan Wolverines head coach all the way to a national championship. Ladies and gentlemen, senior insider for the NFL for ESPN, Adam Schefter.
Yeah, Schefter!
Schefter, how you doing, pal?
How's everybody doing? I'm glad you started on Jim Harbaugh, Pat, because first of all, we've seen the job that he's done there in LA. He's been unbelievable, which surprises nobody who knows him. And it also allows me to pump up something that our network has spent a lot of time on, because during the owners' meetings, when we were together there, outside that little meeting, remember we did that little sit-down with Jim and John Harbaugh back in March?
Yeah.
It was like 35 minutes of mirth and merriment, and then I went to Ann Arbor on the day that the Jets decided to make the head coaching change and spend a day with his lovely parents, Jackie and Jack, and we had an unbelievable time. And so ESPN's put together all this stuff, and we've worked on it for months now, and it's going to start airing on the network this week. We're going to do like a 30-minute primetime special. It'll be on ESPN Plus, all about the Harbaughs, the brothers, some really, really funny stories that I didn't know.
That's amazing. And I assume the people at ESPN NFL who put this together have enough of a brain to understand that they should put that on YouTube as well and social media platforms so that people will be able to see it.
I'll let you tell them what they should do. I don't know any stuff about that. You're much better in that area than I am. But I appreciate your input, and I will certainly pass it along. And if you want to say that as well, that's great.
Okay, I'll put the word in. Let's definitely make sure people can find this, because we assume this is going to be fantastic, because we were right outside the room. And literally right outside the room before, during, and after your conversation with him. And the vibes from the Harbaughs were
immaculate,
wide open. I think you got a lot out of them, I assume, because they seem to be chatty. They seem to be very chatty.
Jovial.
Whenever we're down there, very jovial. I can't wait to watch it. And let's talk about that Chargers team. Last night was a night in which they lose. That is just a heartbreaking loss for the Chargers normally. That is how it's been for the Chargers.
Yeah.
And that's just the matter of the fact. That's a reality of the situation. But instead, they're able to battle through the adversity, win that game. J.K. Dobbins goes bananas. Herbert goes bananas. What are your expectations? What are expectations around the league for this Chargers team? You know, because D-Butch said, you know, why not? They'll win a Super Bowl this year. I think a lot of people thought this was going to take a little bit. Feels like it's happening right now with them, Schefty.
I think this is a team that people are sleeping on. I think that they are good enough to stand with the Giants in the AFC and play with any of them. And
not the New York Giants. Not the New York Giants. Like
the big dogs.
The big, the good teams is what you said, man.
They have the ability to stand with the Giants in the AFC, with the AFC Giants, with the standout teams in that particular conference, and play with any of them. Justin Herbert is as good as anybody. We haven't given him the attention. He hasn't been healthy. They haven't won. There's been a whole host of factors, and that's why this organization hired Jim, to change the culture, to get the team playing the way that it has this season. Would it surprise anybody if this team was good enough to go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs or any team this postseason? No. Could Justin Herbert make a push here for the MVP? Absolutely. Could this team play with anybody and have a deeper postseason run than anybody Yeah. And that's Jim. That's what he does. He goes in, he changes the culture. Like the Chargers, I think we all could agree. They were a team that always has been soft. They folded under pressure. They had tons of injuries. They just weren't reliable. And it just feels like Jim has changed the culture, the narrative, the expectations, everything. And they were able to prevail last night. Another tough loss for the Bengals, but the Chargers are going in the right direction. I expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to be able to make some noise.
I think Bill Belichick said it last week whenever I said, doesn't every football team want to be tough and physical? He goes, no. And he starts thinking about he starts talking about the decisions that teams have made or franchises have made whenever they made changes. And he said, then look what the Harbaugh did. Instead of losing any of their high cash, high cap hit interior people, they got rid of Keenan, they got rid of Mike, they got rid of everybody on the outside. They keep Khalil, who's out, they keep Bosa, and then they use Alt as their top 10 pick. It's like, that was a very big message. They're like, hey, we're going to be a tough team, we're going to be a physical team, and then Harbaugh's in there shirtless in khakis lifting every single day. It's like, this is who we are. I think Herbert loves it. I think we're seeing the best Justin, and congrats, and I'm happy for the Chargers, man. I am happy for the Chargers.
You know what? You go back to the draft. I remember all these these mock drafts coming out, and a lot of people were mocking a wide receiver there because they didn't have a great wide receiver, a lot of people felt, and they felt like the Chargers, that would be a natural at number 5 to go Marvin Harrison Jr. if he felt there, or Malik. And I just think when you spoke to people inside football, you look at who Jim has been, what he's like. He's not going wide receiver with his first pick. He's going big man. He said himself after the draft, we view offensive linemen as weapons. He drafted a weapon of mass destruction, and Joe Wall, that's what he did. It was what he was always going to do, I think.
So, I think the video came from the Chargers social team. Joe Alt and his dad show up.
Bingo, yeah.
And Jim goes, wow. Who's taller? You guys stand back to back?
Back to back.
And he's doing they're standing back to back like this with their head. And he goes, I think Joe's got you by a little bit. Just such a hardball move. I would assume in the scouting process, as soon as Harbaugh saw this with Joe Alt, I like this guy for Justin, because we know how he feels about Justin Herbert. Mm-hmm. We've obviously all heard how it is. Justin, wait till you see the guy. I got you. He's the biggest human. He's big. His dad, guess his dad, almost as big. Just a lineage of big people.
We're saying he was too big.
People could be able to get under him, is what they thought. That has not been the case at all. Go ahead.
Hey, Pat, we're coming on. It's 12:32 on a Monday, so we're roughly 10 minutes into the start of this. We've been talking to Chargers. I'm curious, when's the last time you had this much Charger talk on a Monday morning?
So I just want to let you know, we cover the Chargers over here.
Oh, okay. I didn't say you did.
Yeah.
This positive, though.
It was bad news.
Yeah, it was always bad. It was always bad. It was always like, the Chargers are so good. Justin Herbert's so good. The team's so cool, but they lose again. Maybe guy stays in bounds when they don't have any timeouts and they run out of time.
Fourth down.
Maybe a fourth down goes for it and they choose to do something. Maybe they go out of bounds instead of staying in bounds. Team gets ball back and comes back the other way. It's like there was just a comedy of errors for that Chargers team every time they were set up to win. Now they're winning those games. And on the flip side, Cincinnati Bengals, Schefter.
Oh, no.
Cincinnati Bengals. What's going on over there? Is it Jover over there? Because obviously T. Higgins has a big game.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow has had a massive game, seemingly every single game he has played. Defense, they can't do anything. What do you think happens with the Bengals going forward? And we know how that Brown family operates as the Bengals ownership. This is obviously a massively disappointing year for this team. I don't think anybody expected this, including us, including Joe. What do you think the conversation is in Cincinnati about what the future looks like for the Bengals?
Well, I think there's a short term and a long term, right? And I think that they're focused in on the short term. What I would say would be that at 4-7, despite this being a disappointing season, I mean, they're competing, I think, for one playoff spot. It looks like you come down to Denver, Cincinnati, Miami, some teams making a push for that final spot. And the interesting part about it is I think there wouldn't be a team out there that would want to face the Bengals. Like, that's a dangerous football team. And especially when they got the two wideouts out there together, Chase and Higgins, like, they just seem so formidable. And they didn't get it done last night, and they've had tough losses this year. I still think they're capable of making a playoff push. It's getting late early there. They have the bye this week. They got to sit on that loss for 2 weeks. But they got a chance to make a push down the stretch here. It's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. But they still could do it. And if they can make the playoffs somehow, I think that's another team that can make some noise. But they got some work to do and some catching up to do before they could even get there.
Agree. They have heartbreaking loss seemingly now. That's their thing, alongside many others. But McPherson got to start making those kicks too. Come on, money. Come on, Money Mac. The AFC North kickers did not do well yesterday, other than Chris Boswell. Let's talk about a team that didn't do well. Yesterday, Detroit Lions were favored by the most in the history of Detroit Lions football over a team against Jacksonville Jaguars. 14-point favorites whenever that thing kicked off in Detroit. They covered by like 5X against this Jacksonville Jaguars team that's seemingly absolute crop unless they're playing the Indianapolis Colts in Jacksonville. Going into the game, the conversation was like Peterson, Balky are on very thin ice here. Then they get their asses beat in front of all of Detroit Rock City by the brand new Lions. Where do we stand there? And how come nobody's bringing up chief football strategist Tony Khan? Is he also on a hot seat down there in Jacksonville? And what does the future look like in Jacksonville?
Well, look, change is coming to Jacksonville. We just don't know whether it's going to be today, tomorrow, next week, next month. or when the season ends. Now is obviously a natural time to look at it. And to my knowledge, there haven't been any decisions made. I would think that at some point today, there may be some conversations between the owner, Shad Khan, the head coach, Doug Peterson. I think that there's a feeling in the building right now where everybody is anxious, uncertain, nervous about what's going to happen. Would you be surprised if something happened today? No. Would you be surprised if something happened tomorrow? No. Like something's coming. That was a horrendous performance. It was the worst loss in franchise history. It was an organizational failure. When you're looking at those types of issues, you know that there are going to be decisions that have to be made and changes that take place. So the only question is, when does that happen? And the bye week always is a natural time for those types of things. Again, the players, I think, are going to be leaving the building about 1:30, so about an hour from now. We'll see if anything comes out of there today. So far, it's been quiet. So far today.
Was it Florio? Who was it that that tied him and Belichick?
Florio.
Florio. And obviously, Florio has been around the game a long-ass time. He's part of Football Night in America, so he talks to a lot of people before his reports. They were saying Balky, I think he reported that Balky might be safe because Bill Belichick might be the one that they're actually looking at to go down there in Jacksonville. And Balky and Belichick worked together in 1906.
Okay.
1906 or 96. I forget which one. Either way, it feels like about a similar length of time in there. Whenever you think about who's going to lead the future down there, it's all the same contenders, or is there anybody that we could potentially link to anybody? And once again, is the chief football strategist potentially in trouble down there in Jacksonville?
Yeah, that sounded like one of those splashy Sunday night things that, I don't know, Bill Belichick, I don't know, he's waiting around to go to work
Florio.
with Trent Baalke right now.
We love you, Florio. We love you. We love you. We love you. But go ahead.
I think right now, again, I don't think anybody is safe in Jacksonville. And again, they have to sort it out and figure out what they're going to do and who's going to be in and who's going to be out. But I think, again, when there's an organizational failure, the likes of what experienced, everybody right now is under the microscope.
Tony Khan. Jeez.
Make some changes.
Well, he had that broken neck at draft night. I think that could have been an indicator.
Yeah.
Sure. He took that Tony Khan driver the night before the draft or whatever, and he's making calls with a neck brace on to free agents, and now they're the worst football team in the NFL. Who would have thought?
His dad did say this is the best roster we've ever assembled.
Well, I think that's because chief football strategists potentially put numbers down. It's like, I hope for the good of the Jacksonville fans and for the good of Shad Khan, who has invested a lot. This guy wants a winner. This guy, I mean, you're talking about rebuilding up the stadium, talking about rebuilding up a city, talking about paying whoever. It's like, I hope for his sake they get a winner at some point. But boy, it has been an abysmal situation.
For that report to come out, before Sunday, and then for them to show up and play like that as an organization, like that was a bad. I mean, at least Tony showed up. At least he had the brace.
Yeah, you're right.
He showed some grit. If the guy showed up and had some grit, that was
you're right.
That was bad. Obviously the Lions are a wagon, and Jared Goff is he back in the MVP conversation? Because I heard
he was never out of it.
Yeah, well,
I don't know
you're an AP
that.
voter, I guess, so that would be in your world. But there were certainly people who were saying, you throw 5 picks in one game, you can't be considered MVP. Well, the next week he has another perfect game.
Yeah.
Congrats to Goff.
Congrats
Hell yeah, Goff.
Congrats to the Detroit Lions showing up and doing what they're supposed to do. That's not what the old Lions would have done. That would have been a close one.
Yeah. 7 possessions, 7 touchdowns. I've watched a lot of bad football in my life as a Detroit Lions fan. I've never seen a team worse than the Jags yesterday.
Well, I don't know if you saw the Colts-Jets game. I mean, there was a lot of conversation around that as well. Schefter, let's talk about another team that isn't playing as good as we potentially thought they were, unless you have some news to break.
Here's one final little factoid on that game, just so you know about the Jaguars-Lions. It's just a little afterthought here. I thought it was kind of interesting. Somebody said the Lions yesterday had 38 first downs and no punts. 38 first downs and no punts.
Damn.
That's playing against air, brother.
And their punter was great.
Yeah, I would argue they only had 3 negative plays the whole time. It was insane.
That's awesome. What a performance.
Pat, that if you had ever punted for this Lions team, that would have been the best job you ever had.
Yeah,
best job you ever had.
Yeah, and a lot of people think like the punter, like when I was punting for the Colts, jog off the field before a game. You're going to have no punch today, bud. As if they were shit talking me. It's like, that means I'm going to have a great night tonight.
Yeah.
You know, we are going to have, I'm here to celebrate. I'm here to have a good time. Jack Fox is a dog. Maybe they should put him at quarterback in the fourth quarter late to get that guy some reps.
I like that.
So he can feel like he's a part of it. 38 first downs. You can't even script that in practice.
That's nuts.
You can't even script that in practice to go that well. And the Jags happen to be on the other side of it. And once again, the Jags are only good against the Indianapolis Colts. Everybody else seems like it's a dub. Good luck, Duval. You guys don't deserve this. You don't deserve
It'll
this.
get better.
Let's get to a team that isn't playing anywhere near what we thought they were going to play. And I am starting to worry a little bit. Conman has a question for you.
Yeah, Schefter, yesterday the 49ers in a game that kind of everybody would have thought maybe they do squeeze it out somehow, kind of the opposite of the Chargers' effect of recent memory. They lose to the Seahawks after a Geno Smith touchdown with 13 seconds left. Obviously, no Kittle, so they were a little banged up. But is it time to start worrying about the 49ers a little bit? They're last in the division, even though the division's very, very close. What's going on over there, and do you think they're going to be able to figure it out here?
I think it was time to start worrying about the 49ers all season long. They have not been the same team. It's just been a challenge all year long. Like things continue not to go right for this team, and it's like all the injury breaks that they've gotten in other years, they don't get this year. Like Nick Bosa goes out of the game yesterday with a new hip injury. Geno has time down the stretch. He's running around making things happen. They've ill-timed penalties at the wrong time. They're missing George Kittle. It's one of those years where it just feels like every time it seems like it's starting to go in their direction, boom, setback. Okay, they get back McCaffrey, they pull out the win, they lose to Seattle. They can never string it together. Every time you think, okay, here come the Niners, because they're the Niners, and that's what we all expect out of the Niners. Something happens to halt that momentum. And the scramble yesterday from Geno late in the game on second down with 12 seconds left to go into the end zone to win the game for Seattle. I think they had beaten Seattle 8 straight times. Geno hadn't beaten the Niners in Seattle. Most of these Seahawks players had never beaten the 49ers. And here they are in San Francisco, a team that finally got back Christian McCaffrey. You think that here come the Niners, and that's not what happened. So the good part for the Niners is nobody is running away with that division. The Cardinals are coming off a bye in first place. Cardinals play the Seahawks this week. There's a lot of football left, but the 49ers have already lost their divisional games. They've put themselves behind the 8 ball here. They've made life tougher for themselves, and it just has not felt like their year all season long.
Now, on the flip side there, Seahawks right in the middle of this whole thing.
Yeah, awesome.
5-5 with the way the NFC West is set up, with a win over the Niners here for standings and everything. It's like, with what the Seahawks conversation has been, like, is this team going to be okay? New culture. They forced Pete Carroll out. Is the football god going to remember that they did that to Pete? They paint over the walls. It's not going fantastic. Get rid of some players. All that. Then Geno Smith's dancing around, skirting into the end zone against the Niners, and now they're right in the mix for the NFC West and the entire NFC. Congrats to the Seahawks.
Oh, yeah.
That's a massive win. Now, obviously, we phrased the question, and by we, I mean Boston Connor, because it's very real, and maybe we have a few of the San Francisco 49ers making it to the Super Bowl in some of our long-term parlays in this entire thing. But it's like, congrats to the Seahawks being all the way back, and Geno Smith playing great ball against a very good team. That NFC West is going to be dynamic down the stretch to watch it all. And the Cardinals leading it is also awesome.
Yeah, you pointed out the Niners are in last, but they're also within a game of first. And it's just going to be these divisional battles every single week that decide it. But nobody's been able to get real momentum going. The Cardinals have looked like, frankly, the strongest team so far, 10 games in for them. And we'll see if they can keep it up. They play with an energy and enthusiasm. Back to the Niners a second. It just seems like the defensive line not getting the pressure when it needs it, allowing those runs late in the game. It's just not the same defensive line that it was last year. You see some of the guys leave. There's only so many losses you could withstand, but there's an opportunity there for Arizona, for the Rams, for the Seahawks. Seahawks took advantage of it yesterday, and this division is going to go back and forth like this a few different times. There'll be a few more twists and turns left before we can figure out who's going to win the NFC West. But Seattle's right in the thick of it right now, and if Geno plays like that at crunch time, they're going to have a good shot.
Well, congrats to the Rams getting a massive win over the Patriots, too.
Yeah.
Long flight That's a long flight all the way over there. Get a big-time win over Drake May, who we believe is going to be great in the future. But the Rams with Puka and Cooper are going to be tough to stop. I mean, that is just a matter of fact. What was the percentage that Cooper and Puka made up of their offense?
70% of their catches, 3 touchdowns between the two.
Congrats to the Rams getting all their weapons back. Remember, there was a time they were going to be sellers at the trade deadline. Maybe mailing it in. Instead, they get Puka back. Cooper's healthy. Now this, I believe he lost his breath. I believe he had a
scary
moment. It is the worst. If you've never experienced it, it is a nightmare. You think you're going to die. You think, oh, this is the new normal now. I'm not going to be able to breathe for the rest of my life. And then inevitably it comes back, just like Puka did, made some plays later in that game. Congrats to the Rams. Now, we got a couple more burning questions out of the NFC. Let's go to Ty in another blowout.
Yeah, similar situation, Schefter. After they signed Kirk Cousins, I think everyone was high on the Falcons, especially when you look at that division. And they had looked good until last week against the Saints, and then again yesterday just getting embarrassed by Denver. What do you think the cause of concern is for the Falcons with the Buccaneers kind of still being right on their heels there?
That probably is the cause of concern, that they haven't played well. And the Buccaneers, to me, have played really well down there. And they haven't won, and they've lost, 4 straight? But when you watch them, they look so tough and gritty out there. And they're going to get some people back here, and they're going to get healthier. And I think Tampa is going to be formidable and dangerous. And Atlanta had an opportunity here to separate itself. Can we put the standings back up there again to take a look at the NFC South here? But Atlanta had an opportunity to separate itself, and it squandered that opportunity. It squandered. And now it's still, a game and a half up on the Buccaneers right now. So they're still in a good spot, the Falcons are, but they were 6-3 and rolling. And playing a Saints team that, frankly, they should handle that game, and they did.
It's the Ridge Saints now, brother.
Different.
This is the new Saints, brother. Taysom Hill's back to doing Taysom Hill shit, too. I put that tweet out about Taysom Hill. I'm like, it feels like Coach Riz walked into the offensive meeting room and said, I don't know what it is, but I haven't seen Taysom Hill do Taysom Hill stuff in like 2 years. Has anybody? Am I the only one that's missing anything? You got Taysom throwing touchdowns, catching touchdowns, throwing interceptions, fumbling. I mean, you had real Taysom Hill experience yesterday for this New Orleans Saints team. And I know their record says that they're mathematically close to being out of it, but why not Riz and the Saints getting hot? But to your point about the NFC South, the Falcons last week should have won that game. Then they lose this game. Now they're going into a bye week, and I know Kirk Cousins is going to be on Football Night in America, so he might be able to answer some more questions. But what is happening? What the hell is happening down there? And then when Penix gets in at the end, 9 minutes left, you look.
Spinning it.
It's like, wait a second. It's like, I don't want to be that person, but if they continue to lose, and we had Kirk on, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yep.
We had Kirk on 2 weeks ago, and we were like, remember those conversations that were happening around draft? It got loud. It's like, that's the reality of the NFL, especially when it looks as bad as it did against this Broncos team that don't look now.
Yeah.
Bo Nix is very much in the Rookie of the Year conversation. I don't know what Jaden Daniels' season looks like the rest of the way. Obviously, he is by far the leader in the clubhouse in that particular world. Brock Bowers breaking records for rookies and receptions. He's also in there. But like what Bo Nix has been able to do over the last few weeks, they're on a trajectory upward. They're yodely. But on the flip side, the Atlanta Falcons just looked bad. Just looked bad.
Well, that touchdown run by Javonte Williams, that to me, that's all about will, effort, and force. And he just showed like he wanted it more. You watch this run, like he's at the 5-yard line. There's 4 or 5 guys on him, and he just pushes everybody into the end zone. Like, I mean,
Look,
again,
like those DBs thought that was going to get blown dead.
I mean, we got, a couple. That's what offensive linemen are supposed to do. Big boys got behind them, pushed them in there. But yeah, that's effort. That looks bad.
It does look bad, but I think the DBs all thought that was going to get blown dead. But to your point, you lose bad. You got that on tape, and then everything happened. And going into a bye, it's like Raheem Morris got some real shit on his desk right now.
Like healthy too.
But you know what? Here's the thing: they ran into a Saints team that hired a new coach, so there was going to be a new energy there that day. And it showed, and the Saints came out and beat the Falcons as they deserved to. And then yesterday, Denver has been a good team this year. And Denver is coming off 2 straight losses on the road, at Baltimore, at Kansas City in a game they should have won. I felt like yesterday was going to be a tough game for the Falcons no matter what. And it went exactly the way I thought. And Bo Nix, so Darren Rizzi happened one week, and Bo Nix happened the next week. You see the numbers right there. Rookies don't do that. It's over 80% completion rate, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Bo Nix is getting better and better and better. You mentioned the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jaden Daniels had the rib injury, and he's not looked to run at all. His rushing yards have dropped dramatically, and one of the biggest elements of his game has not really been a factor since he hurt that rib. So whereas he's been running around and making things happen, not as much so lately, and they've lost the last couple of games, and Bo Nix is coming out there and throwing dimes to Devon Vele and whoever it is. They have all these receivers out there, and, Sean Payton looked like the cat who ate the canary a little bit this summer, talking about this draft class and how it was going to be special and these rookies were going to make. I think he's known all along what he thought he had in Bo Nix, and now everybody is getting a glimpse at what he thought he had in Bo Nix. And right now, it's worked out great. Bo Nix is getting better and better and better. He's elevated himself into that conversation, and he's been, along with Brock Bowers, the hottest rookie in football the last month or so.
We were very lucky to talk to Coach Payton on draft night, and he told an entire story about the first time that Bo Nix came and visited them in Denver, and he got to hang out with him for a while. As soon as Bo Nix got out of the car to get to the airport, he said he was a part of the drop-off for him. He said, everybody has to feel the way we do about this guy. He was obsessed. In love with him as a human, in love with the style of player that he was, and in love with the competitor that he is. Now, there were some moments on the sideline. This guy still got some Ferris Bueller in him.
Yep, that's right.
Is what Sean Payton. I still have no idea what that means. Maybe he thinks he's young. Maybe he thinks that type of stuff. But nonetheless, they seem to be perfect for each other. And Bo looks jocked in that particular photo. Yep. And I assume everybody's jocked about what's going on over there. One player that's not in conversation for Offensive Rookie of the Year, Malik Neighbors of the New York Giants. They just benched Daniel Jones for Tommy Cutlets. D-Butch, 9-year NFL vet, has a question for you.
Yeah, I talked about the benching at the quarterback position. Now, you talked about the Rizzy bump. They got fired after they lost to the Panthers. Giants just did the same with benching the quarterback. Brian Daboll, head coach. How safe is he for the rest of this year and going forward? Obviously, we've seen a lot of what happened behind the scenes on Hard Knocks with Joe Shane. So with Joe Shane, the GM, and the head coach, Brian Daboll, how safe are those guys the rest of the way?
I believe they're safe right now. John Mara came out and said that they were going to be safe. I think that they are right now going to be safe. I think, look, this team's got to play better down the stretch. Everybody knows that. But I think right now this ownership wants to believe in continuity, wants to not make any changes. That's what they're planning to do. Could their plans change? Sure. But I don't believe they're planning right now to change the head coach and the GM. That's not in their plans. Now, we got a lot of time left. Let's see how the rest of the season plays out. Things always could change, and they always do change in the NFL. That's what happens. But John Mara, he said himself, we're not going to be making any changes in season, and I don't anticipate making any changes after the season. Those are his words.
Okay,
so we'll take him at his word.
Amen. Well, his words were, I'm not going to be able to sleep at night if I see Saquon as Philadelphia Eagles. So he might be a tired guy, too, right now. Because he has had to see a lot of that in prime time at a high level. Allegedly, there was a report that Daboll picked Tommy Cutlets over Drew Lock because Drew Lock wasn't healthy in training camp, so he doesn't know the offense as well. Tommy Cutlets has had success in that offense. Is that accurate?
I think the reason he went with him is that last year, Tommy Cutlets provided a spark. They felt like he could do it again. Last week, someone called and they were saying to me, hey, FYI, when you watch this team practice, supposedly Tommy had been the more impressive, picked up things faster than Drew, was more impressive. They had a familiarity there with him with them. And I think that they were aware of the spark that he brought to that team while last year, and I think that they're hoping that he can do the same thing for them this year.
Tommy Mozzarella going out there, do his thing. We got about a minute for this question, but it's a very important one. We all saw Tyson's butt cheeks.
Yep.
We also saw a lot of buffering. Go ahead, Tone.
A ton of buffering. I X'd out a few times. I know Foxy couldn't even get it to work at all. That was a fight, okay? We got Christmas Day NFL games, big games. Was there any concern over at the NFL? Do you know if they made any calls to Netflix saying, hey, this cannot happen on Christmas Day?
What can't happen on Christmas Day?
The buffering, the streaming, the crashing, the everything.
I got it. Listen,
cheeks.
Not butt. I mean, if Tyson wants to show up with his cheeks out
That's
on
fine.
Christmas, I mean, Merry
As long
Christmas.
as we can see it.
He's going, holy jolly butt cheeks. I don't know if that's going to happen, but the buffering, the crashing, that felt amateur of Netflix. That felt like an amateur podcast platform that was trying to put on.
Well, you know what? I heard about it. I didn't watch it. I'm gonna guess that when your pockets are as deep as Netflix's are, that you're going to be able to get that figured out by the time Christmas Day rolls around.
Yeah.
That the NFL is going to make you, hey, you know what? We don't want any buffering. We don't want any issues. We don't want any butt cheeks on Christmas Day. Let's get this all straightened out, right? And it's okay to have it in the boxing match, which a lot of people weren't happy about, but we're not going to do this again on Christmas Day. By the way, isn't it Chiefs Steelers?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ravens
Texans, Chiefs Steelers. It's going to be monster.
And Beyonce at halftime of the Ravens.
Down in Houston, it's going to be gigantic. And you would say Netflix got deep pockets, so they'll be able to figure it out. Who was doing the whole? I mean, I didn't need to hear a lot of those people. I mean, a lot of question marks around that entire operation. You know, they're just getting into sports, though. They'll get it figured out. They'll get it figured out. I'm sure they got it figured out. Ladies and gentlemen, senior NFL insider for ESPN. We'll see you tonight on Monday Night Countdown. From home,
Look forward to it. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
From home, apparently. Yet again. Go on the road. Go see these people. Adam Schefter.
Hey.